All right. So we're going to be looking at the story of how the Earth got its atmosphere. All right. So we're going to see the earliest atmosphere forces of change. The Earth was formed 4.6 billion years ago from hot from a hot mix of gases and solids. It had almost no atmosphere on the surface was molten as the Earth cooled. An atmosphere formed mainly from gases spewed from volcanoes. It included hydrogen sulfide, methane, and 10 to the 200 times as much carbon dioxide as today's atmosphere. That's an excerpt from forces.si.edu/atmosphere. This is the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center's explanation of the atmosphere. And here we have an illustration by Peter Sawyer from the Smithsonian Institute. Very cool. This is our volcanic methane atmosphere going on. So this is the image that they have put in our mind 4 billion years ago. This is no atmosphere. So keep in mind there's no atmosphere. But in this picture, we have an atmosphere already established. There's clouds, you know, this there's the lights diffracting or whatever, or stretching, so it's causing the blue waves, as they say, to take over the light to make daylight and all that in the sky. So this is just you know whatever, a cartoon drawing. And we'll go to this one now. This is scijinx.gov. This is how did the Earth how did the Earth's atmosphere form? Breathe. No one knows of any other planet where you can do this simple thing. Other planets and moons in our solar system have atmospheres, but none of them could support life as we know it, as they are either too dense, as in Venus, or not dense enough, as on Mars, and none of them have much oxygen. The precious gas we have, that we Earth animals need every minute. So, how did our atmosphere get so special? The atmosphere described three stages in the evolution of Earth's atmosphere as it is today. So, we got your space, we got your H2 lines, squiggly lines, and we got the HE squiggly lines. And I guess this is an early Earth that's kind of molten. All right. We got atmosphere number one. So this is a three-stage development of the Earth's atmosphere. So I'm assuming we're starting from little to no atmosphere, right? Because there's just nothing. So Earth's original atmosphere was probably just hydrogen and helium because these gases were the main gases in the dusty gaseous disk around the sun, which the planet, around the sun from which the planets form. The Earth and its atmosphere were very hot. Molecules of hydrogen and helium move really fast, especially when warm. Actually, they move so fast that they eventually all escaped Earth's gravity and drifted into space. Yeah, I was about to say, if they were moving fast, like I wonder if they were gonna overcome Earth's gravity. Okay, so this is the stage one molecules. All right. I apologize for the brief edit there. That'll happen post production or whatever they say. Let me pick up where we left off here. So, atmosphere slide number one. This is the first stage of the Earth's atmosphere. Earth's original atmosphere was probably just hydrogen and helium because these were the main gases in the dusty, gassy um, disk around the sun from which the planets formed. The Earth's atmosphere was very hot. The molecules of hydrogen and helium move really fast, especially when warm. Actually, they moved so fast that they eventually all escaped Earth's gravity and drifted into space. So, Earth originally came out of a gaseous dust disk, right? Like they say, by the sun. So it originally had its own inherent, um, it was already surrounded by gas, right? It was already like enclosed in gas. It already had, um, it already had it in its it was already forming an atmosphere around what it was already like surrounded in, if that makes sense, right? Like imagine a ball dipped in something, it was already engulfed in it, right? And this is important moving on, because we have part of the theory says that actually they all moved so fast that they all escaped Earth's gravity and drifted into space. So, um, so why doesn't that happen now to any molecule in the atmosphere that gets heated up, or is it just the anyway? So, moving on to atmosphere number two. This is the just formed Earth, right? And then we have the young Earth. Atmosphere number two. Volcanoes release gases, H2O, water, as steam, carbon dioxide, and ammonia, carbon dioxide dissolved in seawater. Simple bacteria thrived in sunlight as a byproduct is oxygen. So, the second stage of Earth's atmosphere is all these things coming together to form gases that get trapped within uh, it gets trapped within volcanic gases. So I guess this is referencing back to the early atmosphere formed mainly of gases spewed from volcanoes. So keep in mind we had a slight atmosphere that we started with, but everything was hot and superheated, so the molecules overcame the Earth's gravitational force to form that initial engulfing structure, that engulfing barrier of hydrogen and helium. So all of the molecules escaped into space. So we're starting from scratch here with these volcanoes putting out gas, and then it's forming a new atmosphere, right? And this is all going to make sense at the end here. So just we're just going through the learning process as if we're finding out for ourselves, right? Uh, Anyway, so Earth's second atmosphere came from the Earth itself. So the first just a quick recap. First atmosphere came from the surroundings of which it was in, but then it lost all its atmosphere. So at sea level, where we're standing right now, if you were standing right here, you would be in 10 to the negative 17 torr uh, lower pressure system, right? Like, not to be confused with the sucking of a vacuum, right? But there would be no air here, right? Nothing. No wind, no drag, no breeze, nothing, right? So starting from scratch, the Earth made an atmosphere by by virtue of volcanoes that were very active, and there were more of them because the Earth's crust, blah blah blah, right? So this is how they had to explain where all this extra volcanic activity came from. So they just reference a time back when nobody could verify it's an unfalsifiable claim. And that's just where they have to go to start to explain this stuff, right? So the volcanoes release steam, which, oxygen, hydrogen, all that, carbon dioxide, oxygen atoms, ammonia, nitrogen, and three hydrogen atoms. So it just releases a perfect concoction. It birthed its own sustainable atmosphere to create conditions for things like bacteria to survive and attend to the negative 17 torr vacuum that's, you know, anyway. So that's atmosphere number two. And then atmosphere number three, the third stage of evolution in our Earth's atmosphere, is the current stage. Plants and animals thrive in balance. Plants take in carbon dioxide and give off, plants take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. Animals take oxygen and make CO2. Burning stuff also gives CO2. Much of the CO2 dissolves into the Earth's oceans, which eventually a simple form of bacteria, as one does, develop that could live on the energy from the sun and carbon dioxide in the water, producing oxygen as a waste product. So an organism is developed in this environment, and its byproduct produces oxygen as a waste product. And it helps, and so much of this goes on over years that it creates an atmosphere in a vacuum based on the gravitational force of the earth. All these molecules and gases form around the earth. It's incredible. And thus oxygen began building up in the atmosphere, and the carbon dioxide levels continue to drop. Meanwhile, the ammonia molecules in the atmosphere are broken apart by the sunlight, leaving nitrogen and hydrogen. And hydrogen, being the lightest element, rose to the top of the atmosphere, and much of it drifted off into space. Nice. So now we have Earth's third atmosphere, the one we all know and love, an atmosphere containing enough oxygen for animals, including ourselves, to evolve. Yeah, I mean, a lot of weird statements in here. So plants and some bacteria use carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. Oxygen, how convenient. The Earth's atmosphere. Yeah, how convenient, dude. The atmosphere upon which all life was created by life itself. So their explanation for the official explanation for the atmosphere is the atmosphere upon which life is based upon was created by life itself. Interesting, right? Uh, so um, in this particular case, right? So we're gonna walk back through this. In this particular case, the Earth started off in a gaseous, dusty cloud, right? Uh, so it was already engulfed in uh, in helium and hydrogen or whatever they say, right? So its baseline was already surrounded. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. MS Paint circle. We'll say this is the Earth, right? And we'll say where's the spray paint? Here we go. Spray paint. We'll say this is the helium, right? So it's already surrounded, but it's already engulfed in what it's in, right? But then because the Earth's moving or whatever, right? And it moves out of this dust cloud away from the the dust, and it's all hot and stuff, and the molecules overcome Earth's gravity. So we go from this, right? So I'm assuming something like this, right? It's just kind of all we're leaving it behind. It's all fading away. 'Cause it's too thin to stick. It's too thinned out because it expanded into the vacuum of space, and Earth couldn't hold the rest of it because if there's nothing for it to push off of, if it's not already surrounded in it, it can't push off of anything in all directions or whatever, to maintain against the vacuum. Because if you were to grant them that the Earth's atmosphere works the way it does, the atmosphere would have had to spontaneously come into existence and be completely surrounding the Earth so that it could push off of itself. Because if it can't push off of itself, it can't form a container around the Earth to stick to. Because if there's any breach in that container, like if it doesn't, hold on a sec, if the circle doesn't connect, right, it's just gonna, where's the erase tool? It's just gonna start dissipating out, right? So so that's exactly what we would expect to happen, right? And then they say, well, no, actually, starting from scratch this time, the Earth made a new atmosphere all by itself based on, uh, volcanic pressure and heat and shit within the Earth's crust and mantle and all that kind of shit. In that, so we have volcanoes. Oops. We have volcanoes on the Earth, right? They say there is a lot more of them, but let's do a couple here. And these were shooting out gas into nothing, right? Because keep in mind, we've had a full reset. We'll do a gray background for this. This gray background is the low pressure system of space. This is 10 to the negative 17 torr, right? And these are volcanoes. These are volcanoes spewing out the new atmosphere. Well, we've got a problem here because none of this is going to form into anything that could press off of itself, right? Because what's the best case scenario with the gravity, right? With nothing to press off of in the low pressure system of space, it's just going to dissipate out, right? It's just going to fade out. So there's no chance that this is going to, let's see, what could I do for a graphic for this? I guess this would work. There's no chance that out of this is going to come like this. And it's just going to be like, boom, boys, we're good to go. Now we're stacking. And then it just keeps stacking and pushing out from within, right? Like that can't happen the way it's described because the initial reason why we lost the first atmosphere is this, right? Without having anything for it to push off of. And now they go on to tell us that, well, it's a miracle. The atmosphere upon which life depends on was created by life itself. And that's from scijinks.gov atmosphere formation. Now, these same people will want to tell us that the shoebox vacuum thought experiment isn't an accurate representation. They don't expect it to work, blah, 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 even though their entire model depends on it working. It depends on opening up that box, that shoebox within the low pressure system of the contained vacuum and the air forming a an atmosphere within the box, an atmospheric gradient within the box. Depends on it entirely. And the vacuum and shoebox being on the Earth's surface itself has all the benefits of gravity holding on to uh, gas as it would atmospheric volcanic stuff, eruptions. So imagine this: you're a volcano erupting into a 10 to the negative 17 or torr environment. Uh, how would you ever? It, how could it ever stick to you? You're already forcing it away from you in an outward explosion, right? You're adding to that um you're exploding into the vacuum, dude. Like I don't know how else to put it. So you're already pushing away the air. So the gravity is what? Pulling it back down. It's like making it reverse course. And then it still can't push off of itself because it has to be completely engulfed. So that wouldn't work either. Um, and the way that they have to explain it to us is that the atmosphere upon which life depends was created by life itself, starting from this from nothing, and then growing into this, and which gave birth to this. Like it's an amazing story. All right, I screwed up my outro, so I'm gonna redo it here. That was my presentation on the Earth's atmosphere and why the story, why it's just a cool story, bro. I'll leave you now with a quote from Galileo Galilei, who may or may not have existed, who allegedly once said, "In questions of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual." So I encourage you all to do your own research, ask questions, follow up, seek out, professors and mainstream people and hold them accountable. Don't let them just tell us these stories about how life itself created the atmosphere which life depends on, you know, while simultaneously saying trust the science, believe everything we say. This math equation explains everything. Gravity is the magic force that may or may not crush things into spheres and create physical barriers or simulate a physical barrier.